Hello and welcome to Field Notes presented by Between Two Worlds Wines. My name is Simone, and in this episode we sit down with Antonio Miguez Amil, one of the pioneering colheteiros of Ribadavia, Ribeiro, and the driving force behind Boas Vides. We will discuss the region's storied past, its troubled present, and where it may be headed next. We explore his vineyards along the banks of the Avia River and uncover the philosophy, history, and the meticulous work behind one of Ribeiro's most singular producers. So, hello and welcome, Antonio.
Hello.
Good to talk to you again. It's always fun. I haven't talked to you probably since November, since I was out there in Ribadavia, and that was a wonderful experience. So I'll start the questions with a little, tell us a bit about Boas Vides.
Well, Boas Vides is a very small project. From my idea was the recover all places in the Ribeiro area. Ribeiro area is a very old place in the world producing wine. And I was born here 58 years ago. My family, all my family, were wine growers. And after more or less after the Civil War, the most area go down because people immigrate and too many vineyards were abandoned. So when I was young, 20 years more or less, I began to write more about the history of Ribeiro, and I was very passionate about this area because I found medieval places and a lot of documents about the history and the registrations and a lot of things, and I found wineries, or wineries, medieval wineries, and I asked me about what happened in this area, and I learned more about vines, varieties, about viticulture, and I asked my parents, my family, what happened in the past, and they explained me, and I proposed me to recover all this history and produce a wine like in the past. And because of that, I tried to find the best places to plant my vineyards. And in 2007, more or less, I went to London to study the WASET, the WST level 3. And 1 year after, 2008, I had my vineyards 5 years old at that moment, and to produce a very premium wine, red wine. I began to I thought I like to recover red before. In the documents in the 18th century and 16th century and 18th century too, the most wine were red. We have another documents with white wine, but I love red at that moment, and I plant every variety, every single variety, indigenous variety in that was in the past. I put Spadeiro, Sauzon, Brancellao, Caño Longo, Caño da Terra, all varieties, and I try every year to purchase a new plot of land to put together with the main vineyards in Pazos Hermos and San Lorenzo da Pena, because I love that places when I found 25 years ago. little by little, my project is recover a plot of land every year. Currently, in fact, I plant a new plot of land, 2,500 square meters. It's nothing. I don't know. I know it's nothing, but it's very important for me because every year I can recover a medieval vineyard to put together and to have a nice project recovering the history and the memory of this area.
Excellent. That sounds amazing. And yeah, it's in Galicia. That is such in Ribeiro, but of course, and also in Valdeorras and parts of Rias
Mm.
Baixas as well. It's really amazing to see the revival of these vineyards that's
Mm.
kind of got lost and abandoned a little bit. So it's really, I think it's a really noble thing that you and other colheteiros all
Mm.
over Galicia are doing. So I have a little wine. I wish I could share with you, but you know it well. 2022 Boas Vides Tinto. So I'm gonna be pouring myself a little bit while we talk. Um, yeah, tell me a little bit about this wine while
Boas
we.
Vides, yeah. It's a blend of different varieties. Carabunheira in Galicia is the same that Toriga Nacional in Portugal because we share the same territory in the Middle Age. Till 12th century, the Galician kingdom um, uh, was uh, bigger. Because of that, we share the same varieties, indigenous varieties. But here in the River Avia Valley, the name is not Toriga Nacional, it's Carabunheira. But it's fantastic. I love Carabunheira because I think the best place for Carabunheira can be the Avia River Valley and do you know the Dow in the Dow
The
in the
Dow, yeah.
Portugal is amazing. It's very, very fine wine. And I love this variety. And I put this variety in my vineyards, recover this history about this variety. And after that, I put two in Boas Vides is Espadeiro. It's a nice variety. I find documentation about Espadeiro, 18th, 19th century in River Valley, Avia River Valley. And I put here Brancella. Brancella is a very good and gentle variety. Not too much color, not too much acidity, but it's very harmonious. The other is Caño Longo. Caño Longo is a very red fruit variety with a nice acidity. The other is Sauzon with a very strong tannin and acidity. And I love to make wines in the vineyard. So Boarvides is a wine that represents very well the San Lorenzo da Pena vineyard because all this blend is in the vineyard in different terraces, different levels. It's the same soil. It's granitic and stone and white stone, uh, some gravels, but it's very very good area because I love to have some areas from 200 meters to 400 meters of altitude. Is the best place in the Avia River Valley. And this vineyard, all people knew that this area was very, very good area where is the vineyard for red wines. And I put all together. And the three most important varieties in this one are Carabunheira, Espadeiro, and Caño Longo, and after that Caño da Terra and other varieties, and just a little Garnacha Tintorera 70 years old vines.
Yeah, well, it's lovely. I really enjoy like um, Carabiniera and Ortrigo Nacional has this kind of like really some power, some like blue fruited, black fruited power. but there's also this other component of this wine that's a little bit more aromatic, a little bit more fragrant, and so you get this combination of something that should and maybe even feels a little bit more fuerte, a little bit more
Yeah,
powerful, but then it has such
yeah.
a pleasant aromatic complexity. It's a really wonderful wine. We'll talk more about the vineyard where this comes from in just a little bit when we get to the visual part of this presentation of this video. But let's talk more about the history of Ribeiro. So I want to go more specifically into the history of Ribadavia. Can you talk a bit more about the origins of viticulture in this area, its golden age, and kind of its down sloping, its decline a little bit further in time?
Well, Ribeiro is a very old place. It's a very old area where people made wine in 2,000 years ago. In fact, we have the oldest wine press in the northwest of Spain. It's near Ribadavia, 15 kilometers, just 15 kilometers from Ribadavia. It's in the Castro de Santa Lucia. Castro was an old village. Ribeiro has about 19 rivers, but the three more important rivers are Avia River, Minho River, and Arnoia River. But we have more small rivers, and it's hilarious. It's a lot of hills
Mm-hmm.
and different altitudes and different soils.
Mm-hmm.
So it's because that all these different things can be possible to make a very good wines with a good aging time to travel and to have wines with very balanced. We have different altitude, different soils, different climate, very interesting microclimate in the Avia Valley River. But we have all these ingredients to make wines from the 1st century to now. Because of that, a lot of people came here in the old times. After Roman Empire came the Swabian people. Do you know Swabian?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, they're Germanic tribes, right?
And
They,
after that, in the 9th century, was discovered the Santiago tomb,
mm-hmm.
and pilgrim people need wine, of course. And because of that, the most monastery and the cathedral of Santiago built wineries here in the Ribeiro area and began to recover vineyards and build walls and in all these hills.
Mm-hmm.
Monasteries too. The noble people, noble aristocracy of Galicia,
Mm-hmm.
all together went here to open their wineries and
Uh-huh.
have wine to the market.
Yeah.
And the vocation, the very important in the Ribeiro. In that times, the name of Ribeiro is not Ribeiro like now. The name was first Terra de Castella because this castrum, this village, the name was castrum, and after that, from 9th century more or less to 12th, started to name as Ribadavia because Ribadavia in 12th century has very good documentation about the vineyards and the kingdom of Galicia. The king gave Ribadavia real document and was very important. Because of that, the name was Ribadavia till 18th century. 18th century, little by little, people will name this area as Ribadavia, Ribeiro Davia, and now it's just
Just
Ribeiro,
Ribeiro.
just
I
Ribeiro.
see.
But was the first wine around in America. The second one in the circumnavigation with Elcano runs to the spices, and is the wine that appeared more time in the literatura del siglo d'oro, the golden age of the letters in Spain.
Hmm.
uh, Cervantes, Lope de Vega, but a lot of authors, and
Hmm.
was always till 18th century the wine preferred for traders, English traders and Dutch traders, and was very important this wine. After the war between Spain and England was very bad for this area because it
The
stopped
trade.
the trade, and began again in beginning 18th century, but another war stopped
Yeah.
definitely. And after the thesis, powdery and downy, the mildew. Do you know is
Right.
how
Of
it is
powder and downy mildew.
exactly? Um, all this area recovered very well, and with a new technology, with a new press, iron press, um, a new bats with more bigger, good barrels and bats, and new technology, enology, a lot of money from Argentina, Brazil, Cuba, and other countries came to Ribadavia, came to the Ribeiro area, and there was a boom and a big exportation to Americas. But after Civil War, all people emigrate, and this area went down, and the most people went to the cities. New times.
Modernization. Yeah.
And now we have to work very hard to recover all this history. But for me, the best thing is we are in a very, very good place to make a very fine wine. For me, it's very important that, but it's very important to make very healthy wine. Viticulture, very, very minimal intervention, organic and regenerative viticulture, because I think always in the wine as alimentation, as a part of vital alimentation for us. And I think it's very, very important. People has very will be health and have a pleasure to drink this wine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an amazing history. When I was going through my WSET courses up to diploma, Ribeiro always gotten a very small portion of the conversation, but I think it's
Yeah.
really amazing that Ribeiro, in fact, was the wine of the kings and the most kind of recognizable wine in that period of time, starting with the 9th century, starting with the pilgrimage of Santiago de Compostela,
Mm.
and just kind of working its way all the way up to the 17th, 18th century. These days, we associate, at least in the United States, we associate British wines, like wines that are very popular in Britain, as sherry, for example, and also as port wines. But very little conversation is about Ribeiro wines because of that kind of parting of parting and the subsequent movements of the British market into buying Portuguese wines.
Mm.
So, and as you mentioned, too, the Ribadavia was the first wine to reach the Americas that was brought. Likely, or you have documentation, right? You have documentation that says that these wines were brought by Christopher
Exactly.
Columbus. And also, I wasn't as familiar with Juan Sebastian Elcano, but he was another Spanish explorer, and he circumnavigated the globe in 1525. Correct?
Mm, exactly. Well, we have a lot of documentation, and in fact, currently there is a historian um, making a new book about the history of Ribeiro, because this historian is Claudio González Pérez, is very well known in Galicia. He say Ribeiro, Ribadavia wine was amazing in the Middle Age until 18th century. We had, he said to me, there are a lot of crowded documentation. The people don't know about all this history, but it's amazing. It's to have to make a film about this. It's very passionate, because if you see documentation on the traders, English and Dutch, and Germany and Italy, people came here to buy the wine, to went to the keep the wine here, to the point to live in this country, to go
Mhm. Good. Yeah.
to take
Export.
this country.
Yes. Yes. Export.
It's amazing documentation, because give us the opportunity to know more about how people make wine, and preserve this wine in the travel. Um, how was this wine?
Yeah.
And it's amazing, because wine was very people made wine very carefully, and was very pure. Okay, we don't have very this technology, and sulfur and other things, and
Hmm.
acid adjustation, but the most people made wine blended varieties, because we have some acid varieties, another has a very good body, another has no acidity, and if you put together, you can have very balanced wines. And in the old times, the people uh, knew very well these things, and because of that, we can find information about this kind of wine in the old times, and
Hmm.
wine very pure, very clear. It's fragrant,
Hmm.
and it's amazing, because just we currently is a very short time in the big time of the history of this wine. We
Hmm.
have 2,000 years, and now just 60, 70 years, very small production, very small producers, very small market, but
Yeah.
it's nothing in 2,000 years of history.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I find that so fascinating. When we talked last time when I visited Ribadavia, I asked you about the golden age wine of
Mm,
Ribadavia, and what it would taste like and what it would seem like. And I also asked you because I was kind of under the assumption, I was very much in my mind, I thought, well, these wines traveled with Christopher Columbus. They traveled all across the world. How how did they taste at that time? I thought in my mind that it might have been a fortified wine, like a Jerez, like a sherry. I
mm,
thought that it might have been a sweetened or spiced wine, like some things, some historical documents kind of trace, especially back in those days. But you were telling me that these wines are um, unfortified and essentially similar in characteristic
mm,
to the high quality natural wines that we
mm,
see today, the ones that don't use any unwanted sulfates, nothing but natural sulfates, and that use very rudimentary winemaking processes, but still turn out to be of high quality. So that's kind of that was always really interesting to me. It was the fact that these wines, I'd imagine if you go back in time and you tasted those
Mm.
wines, you'd still kind of be like, yeah, that's that's Ribeiro wines. That those are still the same grapes, the same varieties, but more field blend, which is of course what Galicia is really focused on. But yeah, is it something you want to clarify, just like the past and the wine styles back in the day?
Well, we have to know two things, but very important for when people decide to make a wine. The first thing is you have to have very good product, very good grapes.
Yeah.
Grapes in this area is we have very good grapes with a good viticulture. This is very important. Grapes to make a very good wine, of course. And after that, you have to have a, a, a process very clean and clear. Clean and clear is very important. And clean and clear have baths and other things to preserve wine without air, without oxygen, because oxygen and air is oxidate wines and provoke bacteria to attack wine. So if you are very clean, clean and clear, making wine and with good grapes, you can have in the blend of this grape, you can have a very good balanced wines. Good grapes gives two things very important. pH is the acidity of the wine, and alcohol degrees, sugar. These two things are very important. The other thing is important is, for instance, for red wines, tannin and another component of the grapes.
Yeah.
If you have and if you try to put the right grapes in the right sites, you will have the possibility to make a wine very balanced. pH and sugar and other things. And if you have a bath very clean and very close when you have the wine finished fermentation, and another bath to transport is very important. These two, probably you will have a very good wine, a very healthy wine. With you don't need a lot of things to make a very good wine. You need just these things, these two things, clean and very good grapes. So I saw different documents about Ribadavia wine. For instance, I remember now a document from 16th century, 1598, by her, about a Ribadavia wine 10 years old in Pamplona. People came here and bought this wine in Santiago de Compostela and took this wine to Pamplona, and they talk about this wine as a very good wine in that times and very fragrant. This wine was white, but we have another documentation about the English trader. For instance, in 1784 in England, in London, in fact, in the Joyce House Coffee, with the system of the sell by the candle, the description about this wine, red wine, very pure red wine, very fragrant, very intense, very good to age, and all these things give us the opportunity to know how was this wine in the old times.
Yeah.
and the most people were preoccupied to make very good wine and to preserve this wine. And because of that, I think I tried, in fact, to make this kind of wine
Mhm.
without adjustments, without sulfur, or a very small, little sulfur,
Yes.
and don't touch nothing, just nature in the vineyard, and very clean and clear, and with a nice, how you say, working with the wine to preserve it the best, how do you say, good with the just a little, how do you say, with very small manipulation, no
Right. Yeah.
manipulation.
Low intervention, low
Exactly,
manipulation. Yeah.
exactly.
Apologies. Yeah. So very, very clean and clear and fresh, but natural wines. I find that the conversation gets a little blurry when people start saying natural wines, because very many people like to talk about, when they say natural wines, they imply almost a flawed wine, almost like a wine with too much volatile acidity, too
Yeah,
much mousiness. But yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand, and I think it's very important for people to understand, not just in Spain or the United States or in France, like anywhere in the world, that wines historically were really well made in a natural way, because there was no other way to make
mm,
wine in the 21st century, maybe in the 20th century, with a little bit more of the industrial revolution, a little bit more of technology that started to come in. Then you did see kind of shifts towards the less natural, more manipulated style. But even the most famous wineries in the world that we talk about right now, like Domaine de la Romane Conti, they still make wine in a natural style. It just happens that they make sure that everything is clean, that they control all their fermentations, that they're not
exactly.
overexerting themselves in the winemaking process. They're not taking on massive barrels or massive tanks. They make enough wine to be able to monitor each step of the process. And if a wine, say, does go a little bit rancid, a little bit VA, or something unpleasant, they don't hide that. They discard it, or they move it away, and then just make the wine that is made natural, low sulfide additions, but still pure, clean, clear. So I think that's really cool to see. It's really cool to see you carry on that idea into, well, the 21st century. And we could we could say that your winemaking, aside from a few minor things that modern viticulture helps with, is still pretty traditional. It's still very much reflecting back in the past, and giving kind of a bit of that historical reference to these wines.
Mm.
So we talked a lot about history of Ribeiro, of Ribadavia. Um, and I just want to clarify for myself before we go on to the next point. You said that it was originally called Castellum wines. That was the original name of the Ribeiro wine. Then it became Ribadavia, and then it became Ribeiro do Avia, and then eventually just got segmented into Ribeiro. Now, these days, when you talk about Ribadavia wines, since there's Avia, Anoia, Minho, and all of these 19,
Mm.
20 different rivers, when you talk about Ribadavia wines, do you talk about specifically the vineyards that are following the Avia, or you're still referring to Ribadavia as kind of the entirety of the region?
Well, if you talk about Ribadavia wines in 12th century, probably could be the most area that today is the Ribeiro area.
Hmm.
Not exactly this way, because there are some modifications in the times. But Ribadavia represent in the old times and currently too the Avia River Valley, and just little part of the Minho River in the south of
Hmm.
Ribadavia. We have documentation like Tumbo das Vineyards de Ribadavia. It's a real tomb, real documentation, 12th century, about the all this area. And we have information about the vineyards and the area. So it's very important to know very well when we talk about Ribadavia wine, where was this area.
Hmm.
For me and for the most people in the world of wine in Galicia, enologists and historians, we think the Avia River Valley is the aristocracy in Galicia for very good wines and for very fine wines, because has a microclimate, and the valley is cutting ground from north to south,
Hmm.
and all this position and is protected by the mountains. There is the highlands of Ribeiro, are the Dorsal Gallega. It's mountains that stop the rains in summer, and gives this area, the Ribadavia area, the Avia. We talk about the Avia River Valley, gives a very nice microclimate.
Hmm.
And because of this, all people knew all these things.
Hmm.
When they put the Minho and the Avia River and the valleys in a hand, and on the other hand, the best place were always the Avia River
Yeah.
Valley. And Ribadavia represent all this part, the Avia River Valley. And in the old times, Ourense represent the Minho River Valley.
Let's talk about we talked about history. Let's talk about modern Ribeiro. So, what is the nature of the modern wine industry here in Ribeiro and Ribadavia? I know there is a little bit. There's currently two conversations going on in Ribeiro. One of them is the idea of colheteiro, which I mentioned that you are, versus the adegueiro, which would be a more of a commercial, larger production winery. And the other conversation is the grape debates between the very traditional field blend, which is what you champion, and single focus Trechadura.
Mm.
Because when I studied wine, it was Ribeiro, Trechadura, right? That was a thing that we had to learn very quickly. And then if there was ever a question for whatever reason about Ribeiro, it was about Trechadura. I know there's a bit of a conflict between the traditionalists and the modernists. So I want you to give me a little bit more insight into that
Well,
conflict.
yeah, for industry, it's very important to sell wine.
Right.
The industry of wine, when I talk about industry, I am talking about big industry, wineries, big wineries. Colheteiros, the name colheteiro is a very small producer, and they just um, make wine with their own grapes. They don't buy any other grapes, no neighbors, no another viticulture, just with their own grapes. So we are very small, another colheteiro. We are very small wineries. It's like a garage wineries. And big industry need to sell a big volume of wine. It's scale economy.
Yeah,
And
economies of scale.
exactly. And they need to put a lot of wine in the market with
Hmm.
a standard price and with a standard quality. They have a very good industry, technology, and vine and vineyards are mechanization. So the small producers need to contact with the soil, with the nature, and with the best things to make a very good wine for us and for our friends. This is the bus. It's very basic for us. Think about the territory, think about history, think about quality, think about recovering indigenous grapes.
Hmm.
All these things um, are very important for us, but for industry need leitmotiv. And
Hmm.
they thought about 10 years ago to put this leitmotiv in the Trechadura grape. Trechadura grape. Probably you hear about Trechadura. It's a indigenous variety in Ribeiro and can be in Monterrey and other parts of Galicia. But Ribeiro is a very good place for Trechadura. But it's a grape without acidity. It's very strong, very good body, very aromatic.
Yes.
It's nice, but it's you need another varieties to put in the same vat to make a very balanced wine because Treasurer needs adjustments like Albarino in the coast need adjustments because Albarino is very acidic
Hmm.
variety and it's a problem when you have the pH discontrolate. If the pH is you have to regulate the pH and the most industry need to regulate the pH and put another things the modern industry in the wine. But for us, for small producers, colheteiros, the name is colheteiros, is more important to care territory. And we have some conflict with the big industry because in the Consejo Regulador, do you know, is
Yeah.
like the
The
regulation
regulating body.
exactly. The big industry has 8 people, have these boats, and we have just one boat of 10. But the most people in the rural population think like us. They live here, and the most people population has vineyards
Hmm.
from the families of all times, and they think like us because uh, they thinking how small viticultures
Hmm.
and they think it's very important to care the territory because we live here. Big industry don't need to live here,
They
but
live in
we
Vigo.
creators live here and need to care very well this territory, and we tend to protect this territory and to classify the vineyards
Hmm.
to give more importance uh, a vineyard in a very good place and not another vineyard in a bad place. We need to put all these things as the most important things.
Hmm.
Because of that, it's a little fight
Yeah.
inside with the big industry. It's not too big because we are talking about industry that produce about a million, half million bottles. It's nothing to, but they think the other way.
Yeah.
We need to always, every single day, we need to how do you say remember people and population of this area. We have to preserve our territory. We have to preserve our memory, our history, and our little vineyard, because these little vineyards in the Middle Age and the old times gave very, very good wines. All these things are very important because we think about the quality, the quality, but the territory is the bus. How do you say the bus of the quality? How do you say bus is the stone where the quality rest is the territory quality
Yeah. So yeah,
light in the territory.
we can say like
The,
terroir reflecting territory, or reflecting quality, right? So it's the vineyard itself are the indicator, I guess, of quality as opposed to the actual winemaking process. But I think I understand. I think I understand what you're saying. Um, yeah, it's interesting. It's a different. It's a realistically conflicting philosophy that you see literally everywhere, and you see it in France and parts of Spain. I saw it when I went, not the time when I met you, but the last time before that. I went in October of 2024, and I went to all of the DOs in Galicia, and you could feel that slight tension between uh, quality and commercialism. And it was funny to me when wineries would ask us, because we were a wine educator cohort, we're a group of wine educators visiting these wineries, and they would say, what do we need to make it in the United States markets, in the British markets, because it was international. What do we need to make it out there and get our name out there? And to me, the answer was better quality and more focus on where your where your vineyards are, and where your wines
exactly.
come from. And in Ribeiro, when I was in Ribeiro, they kept asking us, well, what do you think about Treixadura? And my answer to them was an honest one. It was, I don't think about Treixadura at all. I am here. I think about Ribeiro now that I've been here, and I like this area, and I think it has a lot of potential. I don't think about Treixadura at all. Albarino does. I agree with you on the term that Albarino needs a little
Mm,
something too, but Albarino is a high acid grape, and right now people really love acidic wines, high acid
mm,
wines. So it's
mm,
kind of trendy. It's popular. It's interesting. Treixadura to me has a similar aesthetic and characteristic as Viognier in terms of that kind of
exactly.
weight.
Mm,
And but I agree with you that to make it more approachable and palatable and fresh, you need to find a balance in the winemaking. I think that's what's when somebody is promoting, when a big company, when Alligator is promoting Treixadura as a wine and saying Ribeiro is Treixadura, I think they're selling themselves short. They're not being honest with what is the potential of Ribadavia, or what is the potential of Ribeiro. They're kind of like they're trying to replicate Albarino, because
mm,
that's a big success story in a lot of markets. People are talking about Albarino, the grape. They're not talking about Rias Baixas. They're talking about Albarino, but they should be talking about Ribeiro, because that
mm,
is, or Ribadavia. That should be a bigger conversation, because as you said, Ribadavia and Ribeiro aren't historically
mm,
single grape, single varietal uh, vineyards. They are blends, and that makes it so much uh, more interesting and more different. So, with that said, and you mentioned Ribeiro is a fairly small market in general, but how do people perceive Ribeiro out in the market? I can share a little bit about how the wine has been perceived in California, but as far as, for example, how are these wines being looked at in Galicia, in Spain in general, and also the other markets that you work with abroad or in Europe or wherever? What's the perception of Ribeiro wines?
Ribeiro wines is very popular in Galicia, and we have two kind of peoples, two kind of perceive this wine.
Mhm.
We have population that perceive this wine as cheap, standard quality wine, and another people that perceive this wine as very premium wine. For instance, if you ask in Madrid, the capital of Spain, about Ribeiro, the most people think about a normal wine, like a Verdejo, for instance, cheap and easy to drink,
Mm-hmm.
no more. And if you ask in Euskadi, in País Vasco, the north,
Albasto.
the north, people perceive Ribeiro as a very good wine. It's very important this thing. If you ask in Girona, where is the cellar Can Roca,
Mm-hmm.
and if you ask, in fact, Pitu Roca about Ribeiro, for him it's amazing. It's very quality and premium wine. It depends on. In Galicia, it's the same. If you ask the old people, they think about normal wine, cheap, easy to drink, and the sommeliers, the people that is knowing the new colheteiros and the new way to work in the Ribeiro, talk about a new golden age for a premium wine,
Mm-hmm.
and they are seeking this kind of wines, the small producers, blend of wines. Treasure is a very cheap concept because it's like if you think in Verdejo or you think in Goldeo and Albarino, it's just a variety.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you talk about the premium Ribeiro wine, for people that is formed, people that has some culture and some have money,
Yeah.
they think about a Ribeiro because we can find uh, Ribeiro premiums in different restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
not in the supermarkets. It's very complicated to find Ribeiro in supermarket, a premium Ribeiro. You can find in supermarkets the Ribeiro from the big industry, but not from the small producers. All these small producers provide wine for the nice restaurants in Galicia and in Euskadi and in Catalonia and other parts like Valencia, Malaga, and Madrid, of course, because it's a big city. But the most people think about a cheap and easy to drink wine.
Yeah.
The most people that don't know very well about wine. For instance, I
Yeah.
asked the other day two people here about the Ribeiro from Madrid, and they told me that I don't know how is the grape in the Ribeiro. Is Albarino is how is? No, in the Ribeiro you have three, four varieties for red, three, four varieties in the blend and white wine. I didn't know. I didn't know this. How? Do you know about some Ribeiro in Madrid? About a brand or some? They don't know very well how is Ribeiro, how is Ribeiro, and we need to explain every time about the Ribeiro area and the grapes and a lot of things. It's very complicated.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you make that point of uh, that easy drinking, cheap, everyday wine
Mhm.
versus the premium wine. It's kind of reflecting what we previously just talked about is the colhetero versus the adiguero debate. So there's a lot of dissemination of the wines of the adegueros because they are cheap and they are kind of all over the place, and so some people get an association with Ribeiro of wines of the adegueros versus realistically what Ribeiro is as a region itself. Ribeiro and Ribadavia are premium wine regions. I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that
Yeah.
as we talk about, we will look at some of the vineyards as well, but the terroir of the vineyards, the approach of many colheteiros can back up high pricing or premium pricing, which is kind of important. And it's very interesting because I also think there's kind of a cultural component in Galicia particularly, and maybe not in Ribeiro. Maybe you can comment on Ribeiro versus the rest of Galicia, but I was at a winery in Ribeira Sacra. So Ribeira Sacra, very, very hilly, really steep vineyards, almost like the Douro Valley, but even steeper, almost like the Mosel in terms of the extreme viticulture. And we went to this winery, who I would consider an adeguero of Ribeira Sacra, a larger production winery owned by a conglomerate that owns Rioja wines and Rias Baixas wines. And what they said is the culture here is to make easy drinking, cheap, affordable wines. And my thought to that was, how do you make easy drinking, cheap, affordable wines when your slopes are incredibly steep and you can barely afford to get people to pick your grapes? Comparing that to the vineyards of the Mosel, or some of the steeper vineyards of Burgundy, like how is that? It doesn't make any financial sense for regions like Ribeira Sacra, the regions like Ribeiro. I think the movement needs to be entirely into the premium category. And in the premium category, you have to differentiate yourself. And that's what a lot of good quality colheteiros are doing, like yourself, talking about history, talking about the red grapes that were inherently native and planted here before. Obviously, I'm understanding the assumption that with adegueros, they're buying grapes from all growers all over the Minho, the Avia, the Anoia, and they are and those growers are much more kind of pushed into planting Trechadura. If you plant Trechadura, you make money. If you plant Carabuniera, you don't, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's very complicated to explain all this, but we have to change this concept. We have to work in change it. I need to explain all these things, and we need to fish and be together with our culture, our history, and our territory. It's the way. It's the way. It's the way to go to the quality. Is the way to explain this quality and this territory. Is the way to have a good project, wine project for people, not for industry, just for people. We are always thinking about people. The most important things are territory and people. It's not to sell wine cheap and without possibility to grow and to have another things. When you have a territory, very good for good wines, to have premium wines. Some people stop and make a normal and conventional viticulture, and they make a normal wine. And when Galicia, Ribeiro, Ribeira Sacra, Valdeorras, and Rías Baixas, and Monterey too, can have very good wines, premium wines, but the most people stop in a comfortable price and a comfortable viticulture and a comfortable wine, standard wine. But we can't think this way. We have to fight to make the premium wine and to preserve our territory. Very important to explain that to the rest of the world. Fortunately, in the world, we have in USA and in Europe, these two things. These two areas are the best area for wine consumers. People know every time know more about wines, and they find another wines and other possibilities to discover new territories, new wines. And this is very good thing for us because we have some places to explain this kind of project at this territory and give and provide wines, very good wines, premium wines. It's very important for us.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's great. It's certainly great to see the evolution of the appreciation of wines, not just Ribeiro, not just Spanish wines, but wines from all over the world. And there's a massive push towards regions previously unknown, and the conversation is beginning to shift towards quality grapes, quality wines are definitely they're still a product of terroir. They're still a product of the land they come from, but that land does not need to be in the French area code. It doesn't need to be in France. It doesn't need to be in Barolo and Barbaresco. It can be anywhere. It could be in Romania. It could be in Lebanon. It could be in so many places that before, as wine appreciators and wine educators, we didn't really look at. But now we can have these conversations about these regions. It is really cool to see this evolution and progression in the minds of the consumers.